Hi, it's Kirby Sommers. Today is September 19th, 2025. And my podcast today is going to be pretty much centered around a woman that no one has really heard about, who happens to have been Ghislaine Maxwell's best friend. I'm also going to be talking about tunnels and about the book Lolita, that I believe you all know was Jeffrey Epstein's favorite book. Now, this is all part of my book, Epstein's Women. It's book one. I published this, I would think, 3, 4 years ago. And I was sort of looking at it and looking through it because I knew that Thomas Massey had talked about disclosing the names of some of the people, I'm going to say people, that had persons, transportation to them. And please know, everyone, I have to use code words. I'm really sorry. But this is the platform that we're on. And I need to be able to get information to you, and I have to do it by omitting the use of certain words and maybe using words that are not even in the English language. So sorry, but we all know that we do not live in a free society where we can just say anything. So as of this moment, I don't know if I'm going to keep this for my patrons only on Patreon or if I'm going to actually put it on YouTube. What I know I'm not going to do is I'm not going to share the photos that I include in my book, Epstein's Women. I'm just going to keep the cover of the book up there, and I hope that it suffices because I'm going to be sharing a lot of information with you. That said, please take a moment to like the podcast. Feel free to leave your comments and or questions. If there are questions for this podcast, I'm going to really try to make a concerted effort to come back and read them. And if there are questions that I can answer, I'll do so. And feel free to please share the podcast. So what I did is, I began a book, Epstein's Women. Book one includes information on. Just go to. I will leave a link below. Go to that page, and you can read the list of the names of people I include, which I'm a little concerned about doing on this podcast. However, I'm going to read the end of a mainstream media article, and I'm going to then go into reading portions of my book to you. And the end of a mainstream media article begins with, I had arrived with Canada's leading lady journalist, who was then close to Epstein's sometimes girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, and it was said procuress, something Maxwell denies. Now, I go on to say that while the author doesn't mention the name of the lady journalist, I explored various possibilities and discovered the mystery woman was very likely the ruthless social climber, Barbara Emile, as in Conrad Black's second wife and star journalist. Emile also happens to feel a child RAPE is okay. And on CP, that the traumatizing images of grade schoolers being, you know, is nothing more than the public, and this is her quote, the public contemplation of squalid pictures. The article has been scrubbed. However, I found an archived copy and then I linked to it. Someone was paying attention because in a certain Huffington Post article, the writer is repulsed by her views, talking about Glenn's friend Barbara, who feels there's nothing wrong with children in horrific photographs, and that these are views that all normal human beings would have. Now, the couple, along with their many, many, many numbers, are in Epstein's infamous Black Book. Now, I go on to show a photograph of the couple taken some time ago and say that they are, quote, part of like a web of spies. Barbara Emile was born into a Jewish family in Watford, Hertfordshire, England. I may have mispronounced that. Feel free to leave a comment if I've done that. Her parents, Harold, an attorney, and Vera, in her autobiography, Confessions, she claims that her relationship with her mother was so strained that she was thrown out of the family home at the age of 14 and forced to fend for herself in unsavory boarding houses populated by part time prostitutes. Okay, you've got that? Later, she discovers her handsome but disturbed father fell in love with another woman. 1 year later, he committed suicide when he was caught embezzling clients' funds and ran out of time and excuses. Now, when I've been studying these people and studying how the intelligence agencies work, there is a lot of embezzling client funds, much in the same manner that Robert Maxwell did and that Epstein did with Towers Financial. This is actually not new. This is just seems to be another normal part of that world. I'm going to continue to read from my book. She became a ruthless social climber and once told Vogue that her extravagance knew no bounds, and she would think little of hopping on a private Gulf Stream to Paris for an afternoon's shopping. This sounds a lot like the spoiled daughter of Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine, and explains how the two became such close friends. Unlike Ghislaine, however, Barbara was beautiful. One of her former lovers described her, and I'm going to say the upper part of a woman's body, as a work of art. But I show a photograph of her with a very physically unattractive lover, obese, repulsive. Harvey Weinstein looks better than the man that she was, let's say, keeping company with. You can get that. It's in my book, Epstein's Woman, book one. So, and I'm going to share his name. Emil had numerous affairs, among them with the fervent Zionist and non-practicing Jew publisher Lord George Weidenfeld. Lord Weidenfeld was a master networker. He was on friendly terms with prime ministers, presidents of various countries, and even with popes. While he was fleshy, unattractive, and compared to an ape for his hairy body, he was also a womanizer who married 4 times and had numerous lovers. The walls of his home were covered with paintings of naked women by Gustav Klimt, the Austrian artist whose words are marked by a frank eroticism. These were contrasted by portraits of popes, for which he had a curious fascination. He spent 1 year in Jerusalem working for Israel's first president, Chaim Weizmann, and was tempted to stay, but returned to London and to his first publishing firm. It is this part of Weidenfeld's life that makes this author believe he, like Robert Maxwell, was a Mossad operative. Both had publishing fronts, which are the perfect covers for intelligence operations. In 1959, Weidenfeld hosted a grand party at the Ritz in London to mark the publication of what was considered to be the most controversial novel of the age. The author was Vladimir Nabokov, and the book none other than the notorious Lolita, the story of a predatory man's obsession with a 12-year-old girl. He made it clear to his guests he might be prosecuted and the book impounded by the police, and so he only had one copy, which was passed around by his guests who were awestruck by his boldness. He heard that very morning there would be no prosecution. The marketing ploy worked well, and soon all of Britain was gossiping and eager to read the unsavory tale. He rolled the presses, and his cash register rang feverishly like church bells on Sunday. So in the book, I have a copy of the original with a signed copy. So in Emil's first memoir, she whines about her affair with Weidenfeld. Unfortunately, he was also very short, plump, and with eyes that could protrude rather alarmingly, especially when upset. She approached their private life, but I used the 3-letter word, with self paralysis of dread, but got out of it by giving him, let's say, uh, let's say using uh, something that's on her face and using that as a way to avoid having to have him, do the deed, let's say. One of the more interesting pieces of information, however, is the underground tunnel he built for her. Tunnels are part of the world of, I just have to blank here, the world that we're studying. I'm going to just substitute that phrase, okay? There were expansive tunnels. For example, and I go into and I share examples of where there are tunnels, and you can read that by reading the book. And I share photographs. Weidenfeld purchased an inexpensive basement apartment called a flat in London next to his home. He immediately hired an architect and had the team dig deep, creating a small tunnel equipped with heating and plumbing pipes. It snaked its way up to the dumbwaiter that opened into his kitchen. Emile, while denying the affair to the social set, would often serve herself up to him stark naked. It's really through the hatch. So she would, from her apartment that he built for her with the connecting tunnel to his house, she would just make her way into his, literally to his kitchen without anybody seeing her. So I'm going to go back to my book. Um, so so she would serve herself up to him naked through the hatch, including the period when he was put on a strict diet by his doctors, who forbade him from eating biscuits. On doctor's orders, the kitchen door was locked to keep him from getting to the fridge. This was no match for Emile, who wriggled at his request into his kitchen with biscuits in hand. So he didn't even have to go out to buy biscuits. She would bring him the biscuits that the doctors basically said he could not have, and ready to perform her duties. And I'm using that word specifically, and I think you know what I mean. But I'm going to continue reading. It's worth noting that Emile compared herself to the monarch butterfly. I've written butterflies and their connection to the CIA mind control program. I'm going to start again because I'm kind of getting lost here. It's worth noting that Emile compared herself to the monarch butterfly. I've written butterflies and their connection to CIA's mind control program. Butterflies are symbolic of mind control as they resemble the human brain when split in two. Monarchs are trained as slaves. Many people have often asked whether or not Epstein's victim, Virginia Giuffre, um, and I'm going to just rephrase the sentence and say, why are you using a monarch butterfly as an avatar on your Twitter account? And this happened during the time that Virginia was with us. So I'm going to probably, let me see if I'm going to keep this here or if I'm going to. Okay, so I'm going to go into the tunnels again. The tunnel system created by Weidenfeld for his lover Emile is similar to the tunnels Leslie Wexner built on several of his properties. When Wexner purchased the townhouse at 9 East 71st Street, he also purchased 11 East 71st Street, which he felt the plan was originally to house servants next door. Wexner had an underground tunnel built to connect the two buildings. He also built hidden passageways in the mansions. One of these was described by Virginia in her memoir, which became part of a court exhibit during her defamation lawsuit against Ghislaine Maxwell. So I'm going to read the excerpt that Virginia wrote describing the hidden passageway. After the massage was concluded, we were going downstairs to get ready to go see Galen's townhouse, as he had promised her earlier. He loved taking the hidden staircase, while I hated it. I was so creeped out by his choice of decor. The blood-red carpets, violent medieval paintings, and sculptures of the pagan god Pan, all of it representing the darker side of hedonism his lifestyle provoked. Spiraling down the hallway, along with each step you took, came with a pair of eyes that followed your every step. Brown, blue, green, hazel, all the colors were there. staring at you the entire way down. Now, what Virginia is talking about is the collection of eyeballs that Epstein kept in his home. I'm going to continue with Virginia's work here. As each step progressed, so would my anxiety to get out of there. We found Ghislaine where we had left her, in her office. She had just received an order. In a, her, I'm going to rephrase. She had just received an order in, and then she describes what she received. A satellite camera with a 12-inch flat screen. She told us how it was used to pick up any person in any location with the quick insert of an address. Quite a powerful new toy, I thought, but it was only a minute display of what the rich could afford, what they would use, and how it would use was another concern. Soon after she was done figuring out the controls on the camera, we made a rare and first for me pit stop, the security room. What I thought was our way out by the front door was another hidden door. I was in shock as I was led into a room so discreet that in the 3 years I had never even known it existed. I kept my head down most of the time, knowing how secretive this must be. Being another door was an entire security base within his mansion. What I could see when I stole a glimpse here and there was an array of tiny screens, 20 odd or something, small screens showing various rooms of the mansion I recognized. The images were constantly changing, so I found it hard to pinpoint an exact location. But from the decor and short glimpses, I suddenly knew from then on that my feelings of my every move being watched inside his corridors was now more than a possibility, was actually happening. I'm reading her words and I'm not changing them so that, she may have written this not 100% correctly. So I just want to keep her voice here. I'm going to finish her thing here. Jeffrey spoke to an obese Spanish guy at the desk whose job was to disgustingly overlook all of the video feedback. Kill two birds with one stone, Jeffrey thought. Free PORN to share with all of his PDF friends, and when the occasion called for it, a security system all at one expense. So I'm going to stop reading here because I do have quite a lot about Epstein's various women, and I talk about the tunnel systems that are used, and in some cases, I'm hearing that these are no longer being uh, talked about. And of course, there's a lot of pushback with the story. However, I wanted to do something. And again, even as I am wrapping this up, and I am asking you to please subscribe and please like and share, and I do await your commentary, there is another reason that I bring up Barbara, and that will become evident the next time. Okay, guys, have a good day. Bye.